Yeah. All right, so I want to teach you guys some more shapes. So we're going to play with rectangles and ellipses. It should be noted that you should very rarely start from a blank sketch. I do that sometimes in processing because processing's pretty chill, but I always end up typing the same stuff anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a sketch I know I have working, like the one we just finished, right? The size, background, and whatever. And I'm going to take a couple of pieces out of that. Which pieces am I going to want every single time?
Size, background.
I'm going to want the size, the background, and this kind of header thing. So I'm just going to grab those. I'm going to copy them, and I'm going to make a new sketch. I'm going to paste those in there, and then this is going to be an example for CCP, for intro programming using rectangle and ellipses, and also lines. Cool. What do I expect to have already? Like if I run this right now, what have I got? Okay, perfect. 900 by 500, and it's purple. I'm going to go back to white background just because the purple was getting a little hard to look at. You guys all good with this? It turns out pink has a soothing effect that lasts for about 30 seconds, and then it causes rage.
That's why people.
Okay, so here's my white screen to work on. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is draw a line. How do I draw a line? Line. Okay, so start yourself off with the line command. It says that a line expects... Oh, there's a good word. You guys see the word they're calling line?
Function.
They're calling it a function, right? So that gives me a new word that I can add to my vocabulary. Right? So instead of calling this a command, right, I'm going to call this a function. So I have the line, and it's still not right, but don't sweat it. It's almost a function. So the line function takes 4 things. Remember what they are? We played with this a little bit the first day.
2 x coordinates and 2 y.
2 x's and 2 y's in what order?
X, y, x, y.
X, y, x, y?
Or x1, y1, x2, y2.
Yeah. So the first x, the first y, the second x, the second y. And those are 2 points, right? And it's going to draw a line in between those 2 points. Okay. I have a plan here. So I'm going to make that 100, 0, comma, 100, 900. Wait, what was this second one? What's this guy supposed to be?
The second y.
That's supposed to be the second y coordinate, right? How tall is the screen in the y's? 500. I probably should just go from... So where's this guy? Good, that's at the top of the screen, right? Because the y is 0. And how far in is it? Good, it's 100 over, right? So we've got 100 over and not down at all. And then we've gone 100 over and all the way down. You see that? So this is going to be a what kind of line?
Vertical.
Vertical line. And I'm going to say lines. I'm going to execute this and make sure I got what I wanted. Okay, cool. I got my vertical line. All right, now I'm going to fiddle around with rectangles and ellipses. So I'm going to put a grid on here so that we can see what it's doing. You guys cool with that? So the first thing I want to do is make a grid. How am I going to make a grid? Yeah, you could try a grid command, or see if there's a grid function. It's not a bad idea. Let's try it. The function grid does not exist. Bummer. sometimes you try, sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's like-
We could write a grid function. We could, but not today. We don't know how to do that crap yet. So what we know how to do today is draw lines.
Do a lot of lines.
So we're going to draw a mess of lines.
Actually, every 10 inches.
And we're not doing every 10 because I have finite time.
Can't you just use
Chris, I know what you want to do, and be quiet about it. Yes, there's a better way to do this. This is you guys all see this is dumb. This thing I'm doing is dumb,
But it works.
but it's effective. So, let's see. How many more do I need? 700, 700, and 800, 800. Do I need the 900 one?
That's the end of your screen.
Yeah, that's on the edge of the screen, right? So I probably don't need that one. So this should draw a bunch of vertical lines, right?
Wow, really?
Okay. I'm going to add this. This is the
Shouting.
dumb way. I know I'm shouting. Just because something's dumb doesn't mean it's a bad idea, right? Right now, this is the way I have. Later, I'll have a much better method by which to do this. Okay, so these are my vertical lines. And now, in order to fill out my grid, I should make some horizontal lines. Now I know you're not following along. All right, so how do I make horizontal lines? Okay, so let me take one of my vertical lines, right? And what do I want to change about this? Yeah, I kind of want to swap the x's and y's, right? So I want 0, 100, oops, not 1,000, and what do you want to do with this one?
Make it 500.
Yeah, there's something about 900s or 100s. Where do I want this thing to end? So right now it's going over nothing, down 100, and starting a line. And I want it to go over to where?
900.
All the way over, right? So I want 900 over. And then how far down do I want it? Yeah, I want it the same down as the other one, right? Because it's horizontal. So let's check that. That should be a horizontal line across roughly the top. Cool. All right. The good news is I don't need that many of this one. So should go make one at 200 down, one at 300 down, and one at 400 down. Okay.
Nice.
It looks like, yeah. It looks like you didn't change your second coordinates. So if you're seeing lots of funky triangles, it's because you forgot to change the second coordinates.
This looks really cool.
Yeah,
It does look quite cool.
now I'm just gonna animate it.
Okay. So, next thing. Now that I have my grid, I'm going to play with rectangles and ellipses for a second. And you all are... Okay, I love the multicolors. Good work. Okay, so how do I make How do I make a rectangle? That's what I was trying to do. Rect? What do you mean? Where'd you get that from? Who told you about that? These are like secrets, right? Okay, so it should be noted if you want to draw a rectangle, right? The first obvious guess would be rectangle, right? Which turns out is not the correct thing. If you want to find this out for sure, where do you go?
Processing.org.
Yeah, go to the API,
Have the reference.
look for rectangle, Google the words rectangle processing. You'll find that it's rect. And then it says that rect expects float, 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 float. Huh?
There's only 3. Oh, no, 4.
Float, 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 float. 4. Okay, so what are your favorite multiples of 100?
2 trillion.
Shut up. That will be on the screen, sir. That will be on the screen. So I'm going to go with 200, 300, 100, and
800.
no, on the screen. 400. Okay, so what do I expect this to do?
Be a rectangle.
Good. I have no idea. I expect it to be a rectangle. So we draw this.
And it's gone.
So there's a line missing.
Yeah, you guys see there's a line missing? All right, this is where we're going to learn a new command.
Gotta make it a color.
Yeah, I want to make my rectangle a color so I can see where the heck it is. So if you go, let me show you how to look things up in the API. I don't need that anymore. I need Google. Okay. Processing rectangle. Cool. First thing that comes up is the API, right? Awesome. Okay, so, oh, cool. It's going to tell me what the parameters are, right? So it looks like I can do A, comma, B, comma, C, comma, D, where that's the X coordinate, the Y coordinate, the width, and the height. And then there's a bunch more optional stuff that I'm frankly not quite up on yet. There will be lots of parts of the API that you'll want to ignore. Okay. Oh, this isn't helpful. There's nothing about coloring a rectangle in here. Do you guys see that?
Yeah, but you can make it rounded.
Well, from their previous,
Shh. Oh, look, there's one that asks about color.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the first thing that comes up is fill. Okay, so if I do fill, and it looks like fill can either be one number, in which case it'll do a grayscale thing, or 3 numbers, in which case it'll do my kind of red, green, blue color scheme, right? Okay, so I'm going to go back to my processing sketch, and I'm going to... Wait, what was the command? Fill? Okay, so the fill function expects an integer. I want to make my rectangle... What? Red? Okay. How do you make your rectangle red? What order do the colors go in?
500.
Good. They're red. Oops. 25500. That's going to make it really red. I'm going to tone this down a little bit. I'm going to go with 167. I just guessed. Okay, so from the API, right?
It also told you that those were your starting coordinates, like the rest were your size.
Yep. So the 200 is the X start. The 300 is the Y start. The 100 is the width, which is pretty clear from here, right? It's one gap wide, which I set at 100. And then it's supposed to be 4 tall. But where did those go?
They're below.
Yeah, they're kind of down here, right?
Maybe make the Y coordinate 100.
Okay, so if we make the Y coordinate 100, then this should scoot up, right? And if we make this 300, it'll get shorter. You guys all cool with this? Can you all draw rectangles now? Okay, let's check out something a little funky with the stroke. So, some of you guys have stroke going, right? So, if you set the stroke to, say, green, how do I set to green?
0, 55, 0.
02550. What do I expect this to change?
The color of the outline of it.
Yeah, the stroke is kind of the edges, right? Do I expect this to change the color of the lines?
Do you have a stroke weight?
I don't have stroke weight on. Stroke weight is still at the default. So, do I expect this to change the color of the lines, guys?
Lines get good? No.
Well, I want to change the color of the lines.
Because it's below them.
Good, because the lines are being drawn first and then the stroke color is being changed, right? So I expect this to put my rectangle with a very slight green outline, which is basically impossible to see. So we could change the stroke weight to
10.
Sure. Let's change the stroke weight to 10. Note that's centered up, right? So that's a stroke weight that's 10 wide. You guys see that? And it's centered on that line. Where are the black lines going? Say that again. Yeah, nice, like, and they're underneath it. You guys see that? They're not gone. They're just underneath. If I wanted them on top, how would I do that?
Put them below.
Yeah, put the lines after the rectangle. I'd probably think about that as putting the rectangle before the lines, but whatever. Right, those are the same thing? Okay. Everybody good with what these do? Okay. Are you prepared to have your brain twisted? Okay. There is a function called rect mode. And this one is a bit confusing because at the bottom there, it tells me that it expects parameters like int. Which means that I could presumably pass this a number like 2 and it would be okay with that. So if you run this, it seems like it's 2 times the size it was. So let me put in 3 and see what it does. Based on your past experience, you expect this to be 3 times the size, right? Yeah, that's not what happened. What the heck? Okay. I've found something, right? Some piece of behavior that I don't understand. So where do you go when you don't understand why it's doing what it's doing?
The API.
Yeah, nice. Go to the API. So go here. Let's see. Oh, I'm even in fill. Let's see. Oh, nope. I was hoping for rectangle. So if I go back to the rectangle one and I scroll down to the bottom, there's these nice related commands down here. Sorry, you guys probably can't see that. Is that better? So at the bottom here, there's related commands, which I kind of encourage you to flip through if you're learning about something new. So rect mode. Oh, look, it's not really quite an integer. It takes like a statement. See that? So you are scrolling through these statements as you change that number. Let me just go ahead and use the statement, right? This kind of phrasing instead of the numbers. So the default rectangle mode is corner. So if I go back into this sketch and write the word corner in here in capital letters, that's not going to change anything. That'll be the usual rectangle mode, right? So there's a starting point of my rectangle at 200, 100, and then I get a rectangle that's 100 wide, 300 tall. If I change this to rectangle mode corners, then what it changes is the way the function interprets the numbers you hand it. So instead of getting a corner and then a width and a height, this is now going to assume this first thing's a corner and this second thing is also a corner. You guys see that? So this is going to be a rectangle that has a corner at 200, 100, and another corner at 100, 300. So if I hit go, I have my 200, 100 corner right here. You see that? That's this guy. And then also a 100, 300 corner. That's this one. And a rectangle in between the two. You guys cool with that? Why would you want to change modes? Oh, what happens if you... That's a good question. So what happens if you try to break it and you make the your 2 points directly above one another? Let's try it. It makes a rectangle, right, that doesn't have any width to it. Cool with this? That was a good question, though. That was a very nice, hey, I found a new thing, let me try to break it. You really should do that. Like, that's good learning. Where was I going? Oh, yeah, why would you want to change the mode?
If you want to have it follow your mouse.
Yeah, sometimes you'll care more about where the corners are than about how wide or how tall the rectangle is. Usually you can just crunch the math to get between these modes, but sometimes it's easier to just switch the mode. What other modes were there? Did anybody see the other two? Radius was another one. Oh, and it's whining. Why is it whining?
Radius not exist.
The variable radius does not exist. If you want to pass a word to a function, usually it has to be capitalized. Really, that's a stand-in for an integer, right? So if I push go, ooh, things got kind of confusing. Did somebody see on the API what radius does?
No, but I can guess.
Okay, go for it. Guess.
It looks like it sets it to be a perfect square where the radius is all the space taken up. It sets it to be a perfect square that will completely encompass the rectangle you told it to make.
Close. It's not totally clear from this picture. Do you guys see that this runs off the edge?
Yeah.
So if I made these numbers a little smaller,
Like 20, 10.
so you guys see where it's centered up? Where is that centered up?
That was where your corner was.
Yeah, it's centered up at 200, 100. That's this guy. You guys see that? And then how wide is that? Yeah, so the rectangle part is 40 wide. And then it's how tall? 60.
Oh, that's weird.
So this is
It's the distance from the
this is the distance from the center to the top edge, and oh, sorry, I said top edge. Not top edge, but one of the side edges, and the distance from the center to the top edge. So this is a convenient way if you know where the rectangle's middle should be. Right? What's the other mode? Did anybody see the other one? Yeah, I think the other one's center. Why is that one half the size? Yeah, because I'm listing the width and the height instead of half the width and half the height. You guys cool with that? So there's 4 modes. The usual one is corner, but you can change it. That's really what I want you guys to take from this. Right? So if you're going to use the rect mode corner, right? You really don't need to tell it rectangle mode, right? You guys see that? You might end up using this statement, rect mode corner, if you've had it in a different mode somewhere else, and then you want to put it back. You guys cool with that? Okay, that's rectangles. I'm going to comment out my rectangle. Oh, and I'm gonna